Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, your victorious woman mentor and power partner. This is a place for us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about the week and to find ways to live more powerfully and make our lives better. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour with me. I always like it when you're here. And whatever you're drinking at today's happy hour, some wine, a little scotch, or like me, some tea, enjoy it. And are you looking for a job? No, I'm not hiring. Well, actually, I'm looking for an administrative assistant, but I'm looking for somebody part-time. And that's probably not what you have in mind. But if you're looking for something full-time, and maybe you're one of the many people whose company is or has laid you off or given you a buyout, or maybe you're thinking about downshifting into something less stressful and more meaningful, and maybe you're also not thinking that it's not as easy to get that job now as when you were 25 or 30. Well, Kerry Hannon's here today to help you. She's a nationally recognized expert on career transitions and personal finance and retirement, especially for older women. She's AARP's jobs expert, and you might have seen her in the AARP magazine or the New York Times or Next Avenue. And she has some great tips for you, no matter what your age. So she'll be here shortly. So, listen, how about our Phillies? They're doing great so far. And I think it's going to be an exciting season. And I know, I always say that at the beginning. And too often our Phils leave us wanting more. And not in a good way. But I think this year could be different. And by the way, the Phillies are always so good to us at Girlfriend Gala. And I'll talk more about that later and about the beginning of Victorious Woman Month that starts this Sunday. And about how you and I can connect more during Victorious Woman Month. So I'm saving that for the end of the show, so stay with me. Anyway, the Phillies gave us a couple of tickets, plus dinner at the Diamond Club and a parking pass. And it's a really popular silent auction item. And in fact, we have somebody else gave us the same thing, but it's a family thing. It's 5 tickets and the Diamond Club and a parking pass. And then not to be left out, the Eagles gave us tickets too. And I want to thank both those teams because the girlfriends love those tickets. And even though football is the one sport I can do without, Joseph's a diehard fan and tells me that yesterday's draft pick is a good one. I don't know anything about it, but he says it's a good one. So who knows? Maybe the Eagles will do something too. I think it could have started with Villanova's win. Maybe it set off a domino effect or something, because the Flyers made it to the playoffs, and I know I was watching the game last Sunday. It wasn't such a good one, but they at least got to the playoffs, and the Phillies are doing better, and that draft pick the Eagles have was good, and who knows, there could be a real miracle, and even the Sixers might do something. So listen, you remember Tug McGraw. Remember he used to say, "I gotta believe." Well, I believe, at least in our Phillies. What I don't believe in is what's been happening in politics. I can't make any sense of it. Bernie Sanders and John Kasich have virtually no chance of getting their party's nomination, but they're still in the game. And Ted Cruz picked Carly Fiorina as his running mate. I've never known that to happen before. Somebody even has the nomination that they pick a running mate, and it doesn't look like he's even got a shot at clinching the nomination. And as much as I like Carly Fiorina, I think this latest thing's absurd. And so now it looks like we're stuck with Clinton and Trump. And I don't think the big bosses of either party are so happy with either one of them, or the face-off that'll happen between them. And it looks like both parties are going to have convention angst. Well, then yesterday I heard an interview with Ben and Jerry, of ice cream fame. Well, they're supporters, longtime supporters of Bernie Sanders and his wealth distribution thing. They like that Bernie wants to give everyone free stuff because it's not fair that everyone can't get free college, free health care, and all that stuff. But I don't see any of those rich guys coughing up any cash of their own. They want laws that take money from you and me, but most likely their accountants will find a way to get them a loophole out of it. So if Ben and Jerry are supporting Bernie, so does that mean we can get free ice cream? Like, will I be able to get Cherry Garcia or Chunky Monkey for free? I just wonder if Ben and Jerry have the concept that the same people who can't pay for health care and college tuition also can't afford their ice cream. And, according to the socialist philosophy, they have too much money. Now, I know they don't own the ice cream anymore. They sold it to Unilever, a company whose values are about 180 degrees from their own. So so when they sold the company, they were thinking about the money and not their social mission. And the sale became a landmark legal case. And even so, after the sale, why didn't they give away half of what they earned and set up a college tuition fund for the young people in 10 cities around the country so that they could get their tuition for free or even half price? Give them half the amount of money that a tuition would cost for 4 years in college. Well, there's an interesting article about that, and I posted it on today's radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. So why don't they and all these uber wealthy people who are so passionate about social responsibility and social justice ask the government to set up a special fund so they can contribute independently maybe $1 million? Do you ever hear that happening? It doesn't. When I hear people in that top 20% carping about the inequities of social responsibility, to me it's just verbal diarrhea. I only take people seriously when they put their money where their mouth is. So don't tell me what I should do unless you are doing it first and be the model. That's my philosophy in my work, and I want it to be theirs too. You've heard me say it before. Talk's cheap and actions speak louder than words. In money, relationships, anything. But speaking of money, my money and yours, here's something interesting I came across this week. A Pew Research project found out that millennials now outnumber baby boomers. And if you don't think that's good, it is good. Because remember when there was so much talk about the importance of zero population to save the world's resources and keep people from starving from overpopulation? And you probably know that's around the time that China started that one-child policy. But, not too long ago, China changed that policy. And you know why? Because there weren't enough young people to take care of the older folks. There's a lesson there. And if those millennials are smart, they'll go back to having 5 or 6 kids like in the olden days so that in 30 years, those kids will be working when their millennial parents start collecting Social Security. Although I hear a lot of millennials think Social Security won't be there for them when they turn 65. And I get that. I don't know if it'll be there for me at the rate things are going. But, Social Security was never designed to be the only income a person has in retirement. It just isn't a lot of money. So it's important for us to have our own retirement plans. There was a woman who came to one of my classes one time, and she said her plan was just to live on Social Security. Now, as the founder of the Victorious Woman Project, that's not what I believe or teach. I believe in empowerment, freedom, self-sufficiency. And yes, I know stuff happens that you didn't plan on. But no victorious woman intentionally leaves herself open to be dependent on anyone, not the man in her life or her kids or the government. That's why, Victory Chicks, I keep telling you to smarten up about your finances. And, my father always said he was worth more dead than he was alive. And, of course, he was speaking financially, but my mother trusted that. But when he died, shortly before his 59th birthday, we found out that just wasn't true. It might have been true when he was 40, And he took out an insurance policy to take care of 4 kids. But at 59, it just wasn't true, and my mother had to deal with that reality. I believe one of the best things you can do for your kids is not to shower them with all kinds of money and stuff now, but to put it into your own retirement fund so that you never have to depend on your children to take care of you, at least not while you're healthy. And the next best thing you could do is keep working, even after retirement. Now, I know a lot of you victory checks and guys might have lost your jobs in the past couple of years, and I know personally a lot of people who did. And whatever your age, it's never easy looking for a job, especially when you're competing with a bunch of 20 and 30-somethings. But unless you have your retirement fund to keep you independent, you want to work, and maybe keep working. And my guest today, Kerry Hannon, is going to tell you why and how to find a job you love and one that's a good fit for you. And if you think no one wants to hire you, Kerry's going to help give you an attitude flip. Now, as I said earlier, she's AARP's jobs expert and great jobs columnist and the author of 10 books, and a nationally recognized expert on career transitions, personal finance, and retirement, especially for older women. And listen, speaking of AARP, before we go to break, don't you hate it that time when you were celebrating your 50th birthday and looking for all those great birthday cards, you also got that AARP invitation? For me, it totally freaked me out. Not only did I have trouble just saying 50, I even have trouble with that now because, I think I'm still 22. But AARP was for my mom and dad and certainly not for me. And it's for retired persons. Did they think I looked like I was going to retire anytime soon? Clearly, they hadn't seen my bank account. I may never retire. And you know what? According to Kerry Hannon, that's a good thing. We'll find out why when we come back from our break. And if you haven't already done it, go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and get ready to hear good news from Kerry Hannon. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Kerry Hannon. Welcome to Happy Hour, Kerry.
Hi, Annmarie. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, listen, you've had quite a day, haven't you? I'm so glad that you're here.
Just driving the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
Oh, my goodness. That's such fun, huh?
It actually is not bad. It's a pretty drive.
Well, you got to spend some time with your mom, so that was a good thing.
You bet. You bet. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Listen, Kerry, you've written several books for AARP about jobs after 50, and I just read your latest, the Dummies book called Getting the Job You Want After 50 for Dummies. And frankly, I think the info was great, even if you aren't over 50. I have a friend who's prepping a workshop for millennials about for millennials for how to network. And some of what you say would be appropriate for them, too. But
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, you talk about social media and a lot of that stuff. But before I went to break, I was talking about a woman who decided instead of making the effort to go after what she wants, she would just run out the clock on her low-paying job and retire at 62, 65, 67, whatever her age, and she would just live on her Social Security. So you say that there are two things about her plan things I want to talk to you about. You have some serious thoughts about working even after you've reached retirement age. that there's certain benefits to do that. What are they?
I totally, I honestly believe everyone should consider working beyond your official retirement age, or as long as you possibly can, for a couple of very specific financial reasons. Even if you've saved for retirement, having that extra income can be a safety net. And so what happens is if you have, now, frankly, we don't have to get into the depressing numbers of how few people have actually saved enough to be retired.
But it is depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're living longer and presumably healthier lives. So, I mean, you can conceivably have 2 decades living in, quote, retirement, and that's a lot of years to finance. So what I'd love to say is if you can continue working either full-time or part-time, whatever you can do, what it happens is it allows you to not dip into the retirement savings you currently have, so that can continue to grow for you. You might be able to contribute to a retirement account with your income. You can stave off dipping into Social Security, which if you can push it back, and it's an individual situation. Everyone's got to do run their own numbers to see what's going to work for them. But if you can push it back to 70, you give yourself a little bump of like 8% a year extra. So the longer you can push back getting into that retirement money, that's fantastic. But there are other really terrific reasons as well to continue working, and they're beyond financial. It helps you stay mentally and physically healthy. You have that, we all crave that social network and feeling relevant and using our mental activities. It's like use it or lose it. So I think there are a lot of really positive reasons to continue working as long as you possibly can.
You know what, Kerry, I don't know if you heard me say, in my head, I think I'm still 22. And and I got a call right before I came to the station from a woman who's in her mid-40s, and we were talking about some things, and she still thinks she's 22. So I think that we all think that we're at that place, but there are those realities that come in that, maybe we aren't 22.
No, we're not. But I also think when I say to people, try to keep working, but what it is I'm not encouraging people to do something that makes them miserable. Another book that I have out is called Love Your Job, The New Rules for Career Happiness. And it's about an attitude shift. It's finding things that you love about the work you do. And there are things that you love, whether when you ask most people, they're not going to say, oh, I love my job per se, but they love the people they work with, or they love what the company or the nonprofit they work for, what its mission is, or they love the chance to keep learning new things or to travel. So there's lots of things kind of around the edges that you really could love about your work. So I encourage people to really think of their job in a really positive way as best they can. But work is a key part of staying healthy as we age.
And I think, like, even if you're not 22, when you're hanging out with people of different ages, then it sort of gives you that sense of being, what you said, engaged, but also you feel younger.
You do. I mean, you really riff off the vibe of the younger energy. You can learn from each other. You have a lot to give back to them. They have a lot to teach you. And it's really a great synergy if you look at it from that perspective. Look at what are the positives that can come from this relationship.
And, a lot of women I know, many of whom have executive-style jobs with a lot of pressure, are already thinking whatever they did, now that they did to put the kids through college, get the house, all that stuff, they're older now and they're thinking about that second act. They don't have to make the same amount of money now that they did 10 or 15 years ago. And not that they don't want to make any money, but, and I've invited a lot of guests even here to Happy Hour who did a reinvention to a job that had more meaningful work and different kinds of opportunities.
I absolutely think that is a ticket for so many people, Annmarie. What you need to do is really, this is your time. And for many people who hit this stage, you're in your 50s or whatever, some of the big life things are behind you. This, the big ticket items, this is your time to really pause and say, and often boomers that I've talked to that have, around the country, when I did a book called What's Next, Follow Your Passion and Find Your Dream Job, they had done something for 20 or 30 years and they turned to do something something completely different, it was often spurred by a health crisis of their own or losing someone that they loved in their life, and they're like, whoa, is this what it's all about? What can I do? What should I be doing this next stage of my life? And it's really important to do that soul searching. And I always say, definitely, figure out what it is you might really bring meaning to your life and have an impact on the world, but don't do anything rash. It often takes 3 to 5 years to really make that transition to doing a new kind of work in a new arena. And it doesn't mean reinventing yourself necessarily. I like to call it redeploying, because you can take the skills that you had in your primary career and shift them into a new industry or a new arena of work that kind of jazzes you up again.
And I like that 3 to 5 year window, so that gives us something to, that's a framework for setting a goal and making a plan.
Absolutely, and what you do during that time is really important. I encourage people to, do some research about what field they might want to move into or some kind of business they might want to start. But research, talk to people who are doing those jobs, add any necessary skills or certificates that you might need to make that transition. And you don't have to get a master's degree. Do it in baby steps. Start with one class and say, hey, is this something that really turns me on? Does this interest me? And then you can gradually move forward with it. But it gives you, if you give yourself that time, you can start doing that. You can volunteer or moonlight. That's the best, because often people think, oh, this is such a dreamy thing. I'm throwing this out, but say, oh, I'm going to be a chocolatier, or I'm going to, I'm going to do something. Well, go do that job. Is it really as dreamy as you think? So if you can volunteer or moonlight and get a sense for what it's all about. And I think that those are some of the steps. The other big one that I know is going to hit home with you is I encourage people. I have Kerry's fitness plan, which we can talk about more in depth, but one of the big elements there is financial fitness. You absolutely have to use this time to get financially fit. And what I mean by that is pay down those big credit card debts, do a budget. Look at where can I trim back, where can I downsize my spending so that I have, some emergency savings socked away. I have, paid down these debts. And you know what that does? Because debt is a dream killer. And if you can have that financial sort of grounding beneath you, gosh, you're so much more nimble. It gives you a choice. It gives you really the opportunity to try out some new things. And you can, as you mentioned before, you can work for something at a lower salary than what you were making before. It's not about the paycheck. The paycheck is key, but you're not tied to a certain salary.
And I think that's really true. I think it's really important I like that idea of having the choice, because you know how it is. If you don't have any money and you have to pay those bills, you have to mortgage or rent or whatever, and you take something that you hate because it'll pay those bills, you make yourself miserable.
Yeah, you're stuck. And so whatever you can do you can't make that financial turn quickly. So to start whittling it down right now, and I think any of the career changers, particularly that I've interviewed and met with over the years that have been successful, they've been able to, maybe downsize their home, move to something smaller before they launched into their new field, or they, if they could, depending on where they live, they could refinance their mortgage, what have you, to just, and pay down those credit card debts. I mean, it's really important. And the other piece that I encourage, and we can talk about this a little bit more too, is, you mentioned a little bit about ageism and starting to feel your age. Well, the second piece of my plan is to get physically fit. You get financially fit, but get physically fit. I mean, use this time to, and I don't mean running fast miles or bench pressing. I walk my dog a couple miles a day. I mean, it's perfect. If you like to swim, swim. But whatever it is, it gives you that certain energy, that positive attitude that comes with being fit. And when people meet you, whether you're starting your own business or looking for a new job, they're like, I want what he has, or I want what she has. Yeah. They can't really identify what it is, but I swear it's better than Botox.
I have to agree with you.
It really is a secret ingredient that everyone needs to think about.
This time of the year, after being in the winter, and you're from D.C., so we have that winter stuff, so you don't get quite as much outside activity. And I have a treadmill, but I can always get on it. This time of year, and I hike in the summertime, so this time of year, it's like starting that process all over. Even though I do exercise a little through the winter, this time of the year when we're starting to, walk up the hills and everything, we've really noticed the difference.
And it goes a long way to fighting ageism in the workplace. It's amazing because, I'll speak to these audiences of people over 50 who are trying to find jobs. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, I see this palpable fear in their eyes about living their money, and they really need jobs and they want jobs. And the women particularly will come up to me and say, should I dye my hair or should I get Botox? And I'm like, well, if it makes you happy, by all means, don't do it the day before the interview. But the most important thing is to get fit and be healthy and feel good about yourself. And
Kerry, I like that idea. At one point I had lost my job, and I thought I had a plan. I had a plan to start a business, but in the meantime, I thought I made these really good oatmeal bars. So I started a company called Kelly's Confections, and I was in 5 stores before the summer happened. And then in the summer, it was it was inconvenient. It was like the butter was melting and all that stuff. So when I started back in the fall, I was going to go back into the 5 stores, and then I realized, I don't like making these. I don't like cutting them. I don't like wrapping them. I don't like going to the stores. The only thing I really like is that, and I wasn't making that much money because it was brand new. The only thing I really liked is that people loved them, and I thought, I don't think that's enough of a reason to keep doing this.
No,
I just didn't like it.
But you hit on the perfect thing is at this age, if we're talking to an audience that's over 50, the point is nothing is forever. Mm-hmm. So I encourage people, go try some new things. I like the idea of you can do a little homework first and do the volunteer moonlight. But whatever it is, nothing's forever. There's no ideal starting point. If you might do 5 or 6 different things in the next decade or so of your life. You might, do a couple things at the same time. There's no real reason. It's not like our primary career where we kind of just, or at least for the boomer generation, we kind of were going along in this silo, rising up and staying with the same thing. Now's your time to, I think of it like a patchwork quilt.
Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Kerry, we have to take a break. So let's talk more about this when we get back. And everybody, stay tuned. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and we're here with job expert Kerry Hannon. Kerry, as hard as job hunting is, when we get older, there are some things we assume about getting a job. Things that have to do with our age. Like we're too old or, whatever. There's things that go through our heads. You say that a lot of them just aren't true. Like, what are some of those things?
Well, that's a good point. People get caught up in the thought that, there are a couple of things that happen with older workers. And first of all, there's the perceptions that employers have, and there are also the perception we have about ourselves. And one thing that really does stop older workers in terms of looking for work is they often have unrealistic job expectations. And so they often think, and we all do this, that our value is much higher than an employer does. So there are a couple of things we have to kind of, if you're financially fit, you can kind of get your head around this. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but it's a real thing. What employers their stumbling blocks are this. They look at someone who, I'd say over 55, right? 50 to 55, but mostly 55 and up, because it's kind of a different job market. I think the 50s and 60s are kind of a different job seeker. But at any rate, they think, one, that you're not up to speed with technology. And, they might be right. And this is something we can all attack, all of these things. There are ways to get around this and to show them that that's not true. But one is they worry that you're not up to speed with technology and you're unwilling to learn new things, that you're kind of stuck in your ways, that you're not willing to try new things. They worry, too, that you are too expensive, as I just mentioned, that they don't want to pay your salary because you've kind of moved up to a certain level and they can find someone younger to do the job. They also worry about your health, that there might be, it might cost them a little more to insure you because of your age. They worry that, and we talked about physical fitness, but they worry that you're not up for the job, that you don't really have the stamina to do the job. And it is a concern. And they worry that you're not there for the long haul. You're really just there as a place card until you actually do retire. So, there are a couple of things that sort of float around there and they also figure, they're not sure you're going to work, play well with the other kids. And what I mean is that you might not work well with somebody who's younger than you, or certainly report to a younger boss. So there's some things that really, stop them. But what they need to focus on, and which studies and AARP recently did a study in the past year that shows that when you look at the older worker, what they bring to the party is something that a millennial doesn't. They bring number one, they're loyal.
That's true.
They show up to work on time. We have this work ethic. We have this way of, we communicate in real time. We often pick up the phone. We look somebody in the eye. We're not always texting. We have amazing communication skills, both written and oral communication skills that someone younger may not have developed yet, or may not even ever develop if they're hooked on their cell phones all the time.
But you know what, Kerry, let me just say this. And I think sometimes because as you get older, I was a better communicator at 40 than I was at 20 because I had learned some things. I had some experience. I'd been through, I understood things better, so I was able to communicate more effectively at 40 than at 20.
Oh, I love that. That is a perfect example. And it's really true. And so we need to do that, that piece of soul searching when we're, have a little swagger about what you're bringing to an employer. We also have a great network. We often know a lot of people. Not only have we been there, seen things, we've weathered a lot of storms and different, so we're more unflappable often than someone who's younger, but we also have a network of how to reach out to solve a problem. And basically, what employers want is they don't care that much about your resume and how wonderful, the great job you did 10 years ago. They want to know if you can solve their problem today. They want to know that you have the chops to walk in and do whatever they need you to do right today. So that is the critical piece that you need to be able to sell, that you can hit the ground running, which most of us can do. We don't need the ramp-up time that someone younger might need.
That's true, and I didn't think of it quite that way, but I think that's true. But you know what, Kerry? How do I market that? Like, if I'm responding to an online job post, how do I present that in my response? And we came from a time when you actually sent a piece of paper to somebody with your resume on it. So,
right. You're so old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I encourage people to just. Online applications, it's a black hole. I know you have to do it. A lot of employers require you to fill out that application and send the resume online. But I'm telling you, most jobs are not filled that way. The way people are hired is the old-fashioned way. Employers hire people they know or people they know. It is really the old-fashioned thing of who do I know who's working at this company, who can get me in the door, who can make an introduction for me. You're going to have to sell yourself in that interview, no question about it. But I think that the key to marketing yourself is tapping into that vast network that you have. It's not sending resumes blindly online. Believe me, that is going to be just so frustrating for you. And I encourage people, have a fabulous resume, and we can get into that. Have a super LinkedIn profile, but don't sit at home if you're out of work and just send resumes. Go out and volunteer. Go do something where you are out in the world. Get out of your head into the world, and you never know who you might meet. And when I say volunteering, I'm not saying just stuffing envelopes. Use your skills to do something for a mission you care about, a nonprofit you care about, and you never know who you might meet. You might even get a job right there. It may develop into something that you would do right at that nonprofit. nonprofit, but it might simply be that you meet somebody there who say, hey, I've heard about this. Maybe you'd be interested in this. That's one way we find out about jobs. It's the real-time people thing where you learn about new positions. It's the online thing is incredibly frustrating. A quick example, a guy I know was trying to get a job teaching English as a second language. He had been laid off from his corporate job where he was head of communications at a big company, and he couldn't find a job. He had done all the certifications to qualify, and one night he was sitting, no one would respond to his resumes that he blindly sent out, but whatever, he was at dinner, and his son brought his friend home for dinner, and Jim said to the friend, so what are you working on, Mr. So-and-so? And he said, oh, well, I've been trying to get a job doing this. And he said, oh my gosh, you should talk to my mom. Well, this guy called up his son's friend's mom, and lo and behold, got an introduction, and that's where he found his job.
Oh, isn't that something? It's like you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's tell everybody, broadcast wide and far that you're looking for work. See, or the beauty of social media, and that we really need to ramp up and have a presence online. And if you can use your social media properly, LinkedIn is fabulous. You can look at a company where you want to work, and you can find out who you know that works there, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's a great way to kind of go inside the company and get the inside scoop of how you can make a connection.
So, Kerry, what are the three best ways for us victory chicks and guys to utilize LinkedIn?
Oh, gosh.
And if we don't have it already.
Well, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn for a lot of reasons. It is your living, breathing resume, and you can get in there and change it anytime you want. It's not flat, and it's three-dimensional. You can put, PowerPoint presentations you've done up there. If you have videos of yourself, you can put them up there. Little clips. You can market your volunteer experience, which a lot of recruiters actually value that as well, going back to that. But at any rate, you can get in and really show who you are with your LinkedIn profile and get engaged in community and groups which are in your industry where you can show off your expertise. You can comment, you can post things there. Keep it to business. This isn't Facebook we're talking about. This is really your business person. This is who you are, your personality there, and you can put your headline up. I think it's something like 97% of recruiters are looking at LinkedIn profiles to find job candidates. So they come to find you when you have the right sort of things in your profile. And by being active in these groups, it's a great way to get noticed. And if you don't know how to sort of position yourself right at the top of your resume, first of all, have a good photo. Don't ever go without a photo. Recruiters totally pass over anybody who doesn't have a photo. So have a photo and have it a professional looking one. Maybe get a professional photographer to do a headshot, or at least get a good one that sort of shows you looking energetic and not one from 20 years ago, how you look today, but have a really good headshot. And right underneath your name, you can describe what you do. If you have problems figuring out what that is, do a search of other people on LinkedIn that are in your field who do jobs like you do and see what they do. Kind of model yours after. You'll get some ideas of what's the best way to do that. And also make your LinkedIn address your name. You can go in and customize it so that it is, like mine, it has my name in it. So it's I don't have it right in front of me, but it's easy so people can. Yeah, and so easy for people to find you. And I put that LinkedIn address right on my resume, too, because that almost anyone you meet, and I put it on my business card, anyone you meet is going to go look at your LinkedIn profile. First thing anyone's going to do is Google you. If they're interested in interviewing you, they're going to Google you and see what your LinkedIn profile is, what you've done on social media. They want to do their own reconnaissance. It's not just your flat resume anymore. It's your whole presence out there. But LinkedIn is the granddaddy of it all. And
you know what, Kerry, you're absolutely right. When somebody comes to me for some work, or especially I help my spouse with hiring people, I look at the resume, I scan it, and then I Google that name. And I don't just look on page one. I go 4 or 5 pages back to see what's what.
That is, that's a perfect example. And so in addition to LinkedIn, people who are in the job market, go and really Google yourself. Find out what's going to come up about you. If you need to go back and, your name might be confused with somebody else as well, but you might want to go back and clean up if there's some photos on Facebook that you don't want to be up there, or there are ways that you can kind of scrub your profile a little bit to really showcase yourself in the best light.
Well, here's something funny. Somebody told me that one time, and they said go all the way back, the 10, 12 pages back, and I did exactly that and found out that my bio and all of my stuff was on a page for a dominatrix. It was like this lovely lady that she was lovely. She was like in a leather dress, and she had like a bobbed hairstyle like mine, and it was in all of my information, my bio, my past, everything.
Oh my word!
It was like, oh my goodness. So now people don't usually go that far back, but
you never
was important to go back.
Yeah. So those are just some really, quick hitty steps. But everyone today, you can't ignore social media and that your presence out there.
Yeah, that's true. And I want to talk about, we have to go to a break, but when we come back, let's talk about airbrushing your resume. I think that's something that's really valuable for those of us who are not 20. So when we come back, everybody hang in there. Kerry has great information. We'll be talking about that when we come back. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with job expert Kerry Hannon. And Kerry, before we went out, you mentioned about using LinkedIn and that it's a living job, a living resume. But on your actual resume, you say that there are things that we can do you call it airbrushing. How do we do that? I like that idea.
Well, resumes are a tricky thing, but the most important thing as we get older is you want to remember that your resume is not your obituary. It is your, no one wants to know every job you have ever had. You want to just keep it short, go back maybe 10 years or something. You want it to be no more than 2 pages. You want a nice clear type, black on white, nothing fancy schmancy. But the key is you do not, and first of all, no one needs to know your objective. I mean, at this age, we don't care.
I know, but when I read that in getting the job you won after 50 for dummies, I got hysterical because I used to get so many resumes and they basically said the same thing, and I said, well, of course, why are you applying for this job?
Exactly. So, but there are ways that you can really highlight yourself. And number one is don't draw attention to the dates that you necessarily worked somewhere. Yes, in fact, people can find out that information, and you don't want the date of when you graduate from college. I mean, this is pretty easy stuff to sort of get your head around, but a lot of us forget. So, you do want some dates, but don't get heavy on the dates, and certainly not graduation and that sort of thing. You don't need your address up there either. I mean, people don't need to know exactly where you live. I don't think so. I mean, you may think differently, but I don't think that's a big thing. I think the important thing to do in your resume, though, is to show what, resume writers or HR people call CAR stories, which is your challenge, your action, and your result. Employers want to know stories. It's a narrative. They want a nice little story about how did you, in your last job or, whatever job you're describing in your resume, how did you maybe increase sales by 10% or 20% or brought in a job 3 months ahead of schedule, or you want to highlight with real numbers that show that's where the numbers come in. They want to know quantifiably what can you tell me that you did. They want something interesting to kind of get their head around. Just having what your job title was, if it's somebody younger, they might not even get it what the job title was. So you don't want to have the job title is not going to tell them as much as you think it does, nor will your job description. What will catch their attention is what you did in that job, what you accomplished.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's hard to do because I've done it with my resume. But, if you can say we did 10% better or 15% better than before, or if you have an actual dollar amount or a figure, I think that really is what people hone in on. And for me, that's what I hone in on. If somebody gives me pablum in a resume, I'm like,
Yeah, and you want action words. You want, verbs. You want things that really,
that's right.
show energy. And a lot of people, actually, one thing in this age cohort that I found, that people, particularly women, may have stepped out of the workforce for a little while to care for an aging parent. And if they're trying to get back in, in their late 50s or early 60s, and there's been a gap in your resume, it's really important to look at those gaps, which is, or if you've been out of a job for a while, look at those gaps and how you can explain what you were doing during that time. And for someone who's caregiving, it's just shift those words of it's a job. So think of it in business terms. You were a project manager. You were a financial advisor. You did a lot of things in that role as a caregiver that can really be translated into business terms and skills that translate to the workplace.
Yeah, you know what, Kara? I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she has it was her spouse and her son, and both of them needed special care, one in hospice and one special care. She organized a team of 8 people. And when she was telling me, she said, well, I think it had to do with continuing to get government funding, but she had to coordinate schedules, she had to figure out processes, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's more than you might be doing if you had like a regular corporate job.
Yeah, so, have some chutzpah and tell your story. If you can do that on your resume in some way, but definitely if you get in for that resume, you can really market what you've been doing. And the same thing for someone who's had a gap because it's been hard over 50, even though the job market has improved for this segment, it's still a tricky thing. That's why I harp back on volunteering. If you can show that, or if you were adding a certificate, whatever it is, you need to show that you were doing something. You weren't just sitting home sending out resumes. You were doing this, and that. You were developing these skills. You were helping do this. Tell your story.
And you mentioned volunteering, and something else that you put in your book is about interning. Like Robert De Niro in that movie. And reverse mentoring. Are those all good ways to, like, if we? And I've talked about reverse mentoring before, but in volunteering and interning, like how do we best utilize that to get that job? Like how do we know who to contact when we're in that volunteer job?
Yeah, I think internships are really interesting. I think that's becoming more common, and a lot of companies, several financial services companies have recently started programs that sort of appeal to someone who's been out of the workforce. And so often there might be one through HR that you can hear about these opportunities. But there's also, I'm trying to find one. But if you're in an interview and you feel they're kind of waffling on whether you're going to have an opportunity there, you might suggest, hey, I'd be interested in trying this out for 2 months and just see how it works out. See if there is some sort of, synergy there that would make it, that they can test you out and you can test them out, and it can be a really positive thing. So do a search and see if there's anything out there. If you look for internships, you might find that opportunity. Fellowships is another way through your industry. Look at your industry groups and see if anyone's offering that sort of opportunity. And there's a group also that, some of the big companies that are doing this, like General Motors has some that's called Take Two Reentry. If you've been out of work, it's aimed at women engineers who have been out of work. Booz Allen has a program now. They call them returnships. Booz Hamilton, Intel, Johnson Controls, there's a whole bunch. But one place I would tell your listeners to check out is a company called iRelaunch, and it's mostly, they have a list of about, right now, 135 career reentry programs worldwide, and these tend to be internship-type programs. So it might just give you some ideas of who out there is offering this kind of thing. There's also a group called On-Ramp Fellowships, which is mainly lawyers. for women who have been lawyers or legal departments. But that's, take a look at that. There are fellowships that you might find. There's a group I absolutely love called encore.org, and they have fellowships with nonprofits, 1 year paid fellowships at nonprofits that you do get paid a stipend. That gets you in the door to nonprofit if that's something that you're interested in making that segue.
Kerry, that's great. And I want my listeners to know that I have read Getting the Job You Want After 50 for Dummies, and I just thought it was chock full of all the, like, a million times more stuff than you told us today. But, Kerry, thank you so much for telling us, for coming today, and especially after you've driven all day to Pittsburgh.
No, it was a delight, and I'm just really pleased to be here with you. And I love your story about your social media dominator. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. And the link to Kerry's book is on the radio wrap-up for today, and the link to her website. And she has a great blog, so go on there and take a listen. Kerry, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And listen, Victory Chicks, and you guys, it's the end of April. A third of 2016 is already over. Is that kind of shocking? The year is moving so fast for me, and I'll bet it's doing the same for you. But there's something I love about this year, this time of the year. It's May 1st is the start of Victorious Woman Month. And while people around the globe do different things, if you're part of my Victorious Woman community, you get to do some things with me. I do 3 things. I have the writing contest, so if you have a story to tell, and this is on the radio wrap-up for today, if you have a story to tell, this is a good place to tell it. You're going to help other women, and then I have prizes. So you can get a Kindle, you can get money, and that kind of stuff. So it's called the Victorious Woman Contest, and it's on the radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com. And, of course, you know about the gala, which is on May 25th at Penn Oaks Golf Club at 5:30 to 8:30. And here's, like, the really big thing is the 21-day Victory Challenge. I created a private Facebook group just for us who are doing the 21-day challenge, and it isn't a physical challenge. It's one that focuses on your mind and spirit. Those are your victory muscles, and the 21-day challenge will build those the same way weights and reps build your physical muscles. It's kind of a lot what Kerry Hannon was just talking about. So go to today's radio wrap-up. There's stuff about the contest, the challenge, the gala, and all about Kerry Hannon. And so today I want to leave you with this quote from, it kind of goes along with Kerry Hannon's ideas, from Sophia Loren. And I don't know if you know, she was considered the Italian Marilyn Monroe in her day, like in the 1950s and 60s. And she's still in her 80s, is still gorgeous. Well, here's what she said. There is a fountain of youth. It's your mind, your talents, the creativity you bring to life, and the lives of the people you love. When you learn to tap this source, you will truly have defeated age. So listen, this week, tap those sources, and that's something you'll do in the 21-day Victory Challenge. So get it started this weekend. Have a fabulously victorious weekend, and thanks for coming to Happy Hour. I'm glad you did. And join me next Friday at 3 o'clock. Jen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.